I think me and Parker to the test. Don't get knocked the out, B. Yo, my dude. Have respect. 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 Pass the drug. Have respect. Have respect. Have respect. Have respect. Have respect. Have respect. I ain't the other boxing niggas out here, man. Have respect.
There you have it, Jarrell Miller reacting angrily to a heckler interrupting an interview he was doing with various boxing media. And this clip here is courtesy of The Boxing Moment, who has allowed me to use this on my channel. So go over to their YouTube page, give them a subscribe. A link is in the description box. Thank you to The Boxing Moment for allowing me to use this clip. But you saw in that clip, Miller not very happy with the fan telling him to pass a drug test, and he didn't quite catch some of the other things that were being said, but Miller not liking it. And I did confirm with The Boxing Moment what actually happened, because you heard the noise of the slap, but you didn't actually see where it landed. But The Boxing Moment confirmed to me that it was a case that Miller slapped the drink out of the hand of the guy, who then froze, and he stood there looking petrified. And The Boxing Moment said, look, Big Baby is huge. He makes Anthony Joshua look small. The guy froze, and then obviously we saw what happened. Miller sort of trudges back off into the arena to watch the action. That was, of course, the DAZN card that was headlined by Devin Haney. And Jarrell Miller, it wasn't the only newsworthy sort of events from that night involving him. He actually did an interview with Eddie Hearn that was covered by various boxing media. A couple of still shots here from behind the gloves. It's about 3 or 4 minutes or so. As we know, 6 months ago, he was sort of popped for a number of performance-enhancing drugs that were in his system ahead of a fight with Anthony Joshua. WBA drops him from its rankings for 6 months, requires him to do some drug testing. And he's been out on that 6-month period. That sort of is up in a few days. And we heard just a few days ago that Top Rank and ESPN are interested in potentially signing Jarrell Miller to some sort of promotional deal. And now Miller is cozying up to Eddie Hearn at this event, taking the opportunity. And I think for some fans, you know, it may surprise them that Eddie Hearn was so receptive to Miller, given what happened just some months ago. Hearn had actually said, you know, publicly that Miller should delete his number, and that he was very angry with Miller for what had happened. And this is obviously when it happened back in April. But he, at the time, he did an interview with IFL TV, and he did leave the door open ajar just a little bit. He said, look, I'll never say never in terms of working with Jarrell Miller again. And obviously the sort of relationship has thawed, because this interview, and you can find this on Behind the Gloves and other different boxing sites, there certainly didn't seem to be much animosity. And Eddie Hearn said to Miller, I've still got love for you. And Miller says, I want to come home. And Hearn responded, okay, we'll talk. And then Miller went on to make a statement about learning from his mistakes, etc., all that sort of stuff, as you would expect him to do in public, acting contrite to some extent, especially when he's trying to potentially land another promotional deal with Eddie Hearn. And Miller said, look, I don't know if the ESPN move is the move, because that has been sort of out in public at the moment. He said he still loves DAZN, had nothing bad to say about Eddie. And Hearn responded by saying, I believe he's got a good heart, but you can't ignore what happened. And he went on to say, Big Baby is very expensive. And the name of Derek Chisora sort of came up. Jarrell Miller said, look, I'd knock him out, yada, yada, yada. So it sort of left a little bit unresolved. But the sort of exchange, I think, would have been surprising for some, given it was still quite fresh what happened. Miller is still on that sort of 6 months that the WBA handed down, that is almost run out, but it's still within the 6 months. But I guess at the end of the day, you have to look at the situation and step back and go, it's boxing. Boxing is a business after all. Eddie Hearn, even though he expressed outrage a number of months ago, even at that point didn't quite shut the door on Jarrell Miller and working with him in the future. And clearly from that exchange, you can sort of see he allowed Miller to put his head on his shoulder, smiles and, you know, jokes, all that sort of thing in this sort of interview that they did together. If he believes that Miller is still a viable commodity within the heavyweight division, we could well see Eddie Hearn working with Jarrell Miller very shortly. And I guess for Miller, with this whole situation, with the potential deal with ESPN and Top Rank on the table, if he can get some interest out of DAZN and there ends up being a little bit of a bidding war, he can obviously try to push his price up. And just the fact that he's talking with Eddie Hearn now and he's looking to potentially go back to DAZN, that may make ESPN and Top Rank sort of increase its offer anyway. After all, Jarrell Miller is a savvy businessman. He's going to be trying to get as much as he can for himself, and his co-promoters, Dimitri Salita and Greg Cohen, they will be looking for the biggest money offer that they can, guaranteed money. Things happened a few months ago that lost Miller and his promoters a severe amount of money, so they will be looking to quickly recoup as much as possible. But yeah, a little bit surprising how the animosity just melted away so soon. I was sort of thinking that maybe Eddie Hearn would still be a little bit icy towards Miller for a little bit longer, but I guess this is the boxing game after all. We should never be surprised by what happened. But what did you make of the situation with Miller reacting to the heckler, slapping a drink out of that fan's hand, not Miller's fan, but a boxing fan's hand, and obviously the situation with Eddie Hearn? They looked very cozy. Drop a comment, loud and often. Hit like, hit subscribe. Follow me on Twitter, boxing_squared. I'm out.